Hi, I'm Nicola.
And I'm Jay Percy.
And welcome to the Afro Animist Podcast.
We are two animists and spiritual practitioners exploring the secular through the spiritual, discussing life experiences through a sacred lens.
Each week we share our experiences and dive deep into everything in life, from philosophy, metaphysics, obeah, occultism, shamanism, culture, healing, nature, animism,
the arts, pop culture, conspiracies, psychedelics and witchcraft. Nothing is off the table in these discussions, which aim to get to the heart of what it means to be spiritual and Afro-diasporic in an increasingly sterile and authoritarian world.
We keep it real whilst exploring the biggest mysteries of our multiverse. Join us holding this space to laugh, cry, debate, build community and tear down oppressive structures.
Welcome, 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 beautiful, beautiful being of the multiverse to the Afro Animist Podcast. And you are here with me today, Jay Percy.
And also me, Nicola Roth. And today we're going to be talking about, can I pronounce it right? Imbolc.
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 Imbolc. It's a Gaelic. Okay, it's a Gaelic word, so this is where the pronunciation is like, But once again, we have this question: why is the Afro Animist Podcast talking about a Gaelic holiday? First of all, I think we're both part Celtic, Gaelic.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you are a part of the diaspora, there's a chance that 1% of you is, unfortunately. Also, it's quite interesting to talk about because during the transatlantic slave trade, indentured Irish servants went over to the Americas and the Caribbean, and they took their deities and practices with them. Well, I'm not talking Jesus Christ. I'm talking your Celtic, your Gaelic, spirits, Brigid, or as she's known in Haiti and New Orleans, Maman Brigitte. That was taken over there. And these two holidays sort of fall at the same point. And I am splitting them up as two distinct holidays because technically they weren't always one holiday. It's the church that brought them together and they called it whatever the church called it. And that 1st of February is known as St. Bridget's Day, or Imbolc, or as it's known in Haiti, the Feast of Maman Brigitte. So there's very interesting history around this day, which is said to be February the 1st. However, after doing some research, let me talk about the astrological point of where it is in the year anyway. It sits right between winter solstice and the spring equinox. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
The vernal equinox, the spring equinox. So it's directly in the middle of the two. Technically speaking, the 1st of February this year, it doesn't lie in between. So from my research, there are 89 days between the 21st of December 2022 and 20th of March 2023. 20th of March is this year's spring equinox. So divide by 2 and we have 44.5 days, which actually brings us to the early hours of the 4th of February. So today we are recording and it is the 3rd of February, and I think you'll be getting this episode just a few days after. So there's still time to feel into this new spring feeling if you want.
Exactly. The energy is still there. We're carrying it over. So hook up with it, basically. I love, by the way, that you've worked that out, because this is something that I think I mentioned a while ago, that I always struggle with, when the equinox is, when everything is, because it changes and you read different things all the time, but actually being able to work out that math for yourself. You're a fucking genius. I love you so much. So and actually, do you know what that means? I've got my trusty almanac. I just got this for myself this year.
Ooh, yeah,
I love it. This is going to help me with all my foraging. Obviously, the full moon is on the 5th, so I feel like,
That
yeah, it's
feels
the
like
building.
proper Imbolc. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what I was feeling like in the middle of the week. I was kind of like, it kind of just went and passed me, but I was very
Yeah.
aware. I've been very aware of this moon that's growing. Like every night, I'm going out and I'm sitting under that beautiful moonlight and
Do
feeling the
you do
energies.
the same thing I do? When someone says there's an equinox, or I say someone, when it is said there is an equinox or a solstice, you tend to ignore
Yes,
the day and you will celebrate it on the big moon that is closest to it.
I used to
Do
do
you?
that. Yeah, sometimes I do. Yeah,
Like I
because
wait for the nearest the full moon or the new moon that is like near it.
that's near. Yeah, because that's when I feel like, just personally in my practice, that's when you have the biggest changes in those energies. So those are just really good points to create different kinds of work. And with the full moon being on this Imbolc, um, as we're talking about it being, the begin. I don't know. It's not at the beginning of spring essentially, and the kind of movement into this year. Um,
Mm,
I feel like it makes a lot of sense that there's a full moon right here, and for us to kind of utilize those energies of. I mean, ironically, actually, I would feel like Imbolc was still a planting a seed kind of time, which I would do
yes.
with a new moon. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's complicated, isn't it?
It really is. But I think this interesting thing of you saying like planting a seed, the history of the word Imbolc, it comes from the Gaelic word Yomelk. So somehow over the passage of time, it's gone Yomelk, Imbolc, Yomelk, 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 Imbolc, Imbolc, Imbolc. We get to Imbolc somehow. And Yomelk is the Gaelic term meaning ewe's milk. So this would have been when the first sheep's milk would have come in. So all of the little um, all of that new life, it gets its first feed. So it is like that. The seed is just there, and it's just getting some of that nourishment, um, which I think is pretty fascinating. That they would have had a whole festival around that milk coming in, because milk is so life giving, and
Mm.
we really don't appreciate that. I mean, I think we're appreciating it more and more in like the last decade. But how many times in the past have you seen like women go out breastfeeding, or you even see it on like videos on the internet, and someone's like yelling at this woman for breastfeeding? It's like
I
this is
know.
life giving. This
I
is
know.
the start of all things new.
It's a literal
Beautiful.
celebration. Imagine being able
Yeah.
to, I mean, we can imagine it. Imagine sustaining a whole human life through something your body produces. It is
Through
literally the
your
most
titty.
fucking insane thing for your titty, man. Like, it's amazing. It's literally fucking incredible.
It's
And
a celebration.
it's a celebration. And therefore, I do feel like it makes a lot of, obviously it makes sense, but like it's actually quite a beautiful holiday, like in the sense of this, like when the lambs are coming, when this kind of life is restarting this year. And I'm definitely feeling it, because I don't know if you guys listened to our New Year's episode where I was like, fuck New Year's, I'm fucking not fucking New Year's in what's 2023, whatever, fucking like I'm definitely feeling it as we're moving more now. And I did feel this week, I have felt like a massive change. And obviously I've been doing a lot of like deep work actually, but I did feel like a movement of January ending and February beginning, and just like a kind of freshness. I've started, the daffodils are fucking shooting up already. Like I'm seeing
Ooh,
so many birds every day. At the moment I'm getting visited by a sparrowhawk and a buzzard,
oh,
and it is literally just like, yeah, I'm proper in my little happy nature place at
that's
the moment.
lovely. Yeah, what a good time of year. I love that these ancient pagan traditions, before they were like wiped out by the Romans, like they marked every single turning of
hmm
space and time. They just really valued the sanctity of seasons, of nature, of life, and it was just celebrated. And I think there's been a whole disservice that has been done to the people of this land, because essentially them being wiped out and replaced with this Roman attitude is what spread like a virus to the rest of the world.
hmm
And um, it's just been horrible, because then we've also disconnected from nature. Whereas we would all have our own ways of marking the seasons and finding like fun and joyful ways to share that with community. I think that's probably why I love talking about this sort of pagan wheel of the year, these old seasons that belong to this British Isle land. Because I do feel like if the people of this land got back to it, um, then we would see a lot fewer problems with this idea of I'm better than you because of this or I'm better than you because of that. I think you would see that subside.
100%. Well, you're talking about essentially the our cultural ebb and flow in relation to what our literal seasons are doing. Do you know what I mean? Which is something we
Yeah,
don't acknowledge at all anymore. And but we all feel it. We all feel different at different times of year, and it doesn't matter whether or not that's spiritual or just like fucking life. Like we all feel these differences. Like,
yeah,
and not having as many holidays, or we've got like I don't know how many bank holidays we've got in the UK, but those bank holidays only mean a day off of work. They don't mean shit anything else for most
oh,
people.
and also they're
you
all
know
like contracted in the first part of the year or the
I know, it's
very end
shit,
of the
isn't it?
year, and
Yeah.
it's just like what?
And what is it, and like I just feel like there is something in actually taking time to go, okay, the world, the literal world, no hippie shit, the literal world is here right now, like, or in my hemisphere of the world, this is what the season is saying, this is what the animals feel like, like this is what's growing or what isn't growing. It's like you to have that space of that connection, I feel like is literally life changing. I mean,
Yeah,
even if you've got a pet, there'll be things that change with your pet. Like JJ now is about to
yeah.
lose his winter undercoat. That is another thing that
Oh.
reminds me all of a sudden, like there's a whole next level of shedding in my house. I'm like, okay, we've moved seasons. Do you know what I mean? Everything is
Actually,
affected
it's
by it.
funny you say that because Fox is just there's just hair everywhere. Now you say
Babe,
it.
it's because it's
Yeah.
getting warmer. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they like to fuck us up with that hair. And
So, going back to this Imbolc, and I think I mentioned earlier just the separation between Imbolc and St. Brigid's Day. She wasn't always a saint. She was a saint when she was integrated into the Catholic Church because the church were like, oh no, these pagans, we're not going to be able to colonize them unless we
mm,
syncretize them. She was just Brigid. Originally, Brigid was Ireland's like deity. And she's this fiery, red-headed woman who represents life and death, Brigid of Kildare. And
mm-hmm.
normally on Imbolc, because the two holidays got fused when the church just thought, we'll stick them all together, you'll like weave a cross, and you'll weave that cross out of like plant materials, the dried plant materials. If you follow our mentor, Emma Catherine Wild Witch, generally
You should.
speaking, yeah, you should. If you're not, you should. She tends to this time of year be weaving something for Imbolc, or she's really good at like marking and celebrating the seasons. Like, whereas I'll be
Mm.
like, oh shit, it was yesterday. She is just on this thing. Shout out
Yeah,
Emma.
she is on it. Shout out to Emma. I
um,
wanted to actually say, oh, can I just jump in?
no, yeah, go for it. Yeah,
Is that okay? Because obviously you're talking about Brigid and
yeah.
How do you say it? Kildare? Kildare? How did
Kildare.
you pronounce
I
Kildare?
asked my husband, who is half Irish, and he's like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I don't know. Don't speak Gaelic.
It was just a shrug. Like, thanks.
Kildare. So this place in Ireland. So it's just really interesting because the thing that I know mostly about Bridget is that obviously she's one of the main goddesses that we would work with in the British Isles pre-Christianity, but also that pre-Christianity there was a flame burning in Kildare. Did you read about this?
No, I didn't.
No. So they're saying that she built her monastery and church in Kildare and then continued a custom of keeping her fire alight. So this is the light of Brigid. And they say that this survived. So pre-Romans to the 16th century when they came in and they suppressed all the monasteries. So this flame was continuously burning in
Wow.
honor of Bridget. And then in 1993, they relit the flame, and there's now this like these sisters, the Sisters of Brigitte, basically in Ireland, where you can go and you can actually be with this magical, amazing. I just think it's like the most beautiful
Road
thing, the
trip.
continuation of that. Babes, do you know what I'm thinking? But it's just like we have so little in this country of continuation. Do you know what I mean? We don't know what came before. Like, we've got all these different ideas, and then all the stories are different. Then people will be like, you're just speaking shit. Like, there's just, it's very hard. No direct lineage at all. Our lineage is the fucking Tudors. Like, do you know what I mean? It's that. So,
Divorce beheaded died. I don't
was
care.
beheaded
I don't
died.
care who was fucking who. I care about Brigid. Like,
Do you know? Well, this is it. If we cared less about who was fucking who, the world would be a better place. We were talking about this last episode. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, because this is one place actually where the lineage of the British Isles has they're bringing it back, or they've created this space. They've brought this space back. So yeah, we need to go on a road trip. Anyone want to come on a road trip with us?
Yeah,
all the witchy
go
places
on like
of the UK.
Yeah, pilgrimage of the witchy places of Ireland. I think that would be fabulous.
No, it will take time. You know that. That journey will take time. That won't be no week road trip. We're gonna have to take a good 6 weeks out to
pilgrimage.
To do these pilgrimages, because this is it again as well. It's like we do feel really disconnected in this country, but we have so many ancient sites that are such a fucking high vibration. Yeah, we need to go exploring. Anyway, continue telling us about the beauty of Imbolc.
Well, no, I think thank you for sharing that. And so she originally comes from Ireland, and she's this white woman with long, fiery ginger hair. And through the indentured servant, she's then been taken to Haiti and like New Orleans. So there are today orders, like secret societies, that will still, venerate and pay homage to her. And these are African American or Afro Caribbean people who are doing this because they've sort of integrated this deity into their practices. And while she's a deity in Ireland, in Haitian Vodou and Louisiana Voodoo, she's a loa. So if you're familiar with Voodoo, there are loas, and they are sort of highly venerated. I don't want to say deity because they're not like gods. I guess in like Greek terms, the best thing would be like a demigod. I don't know. If you're a lot more familiar with Vodou than I am, please correct me on this, because I know that for sure they're not deities, but they're like a step down. But I guess lower is the word that we'd use to describe that. And so she's come all the way from Ireland, and as a reflection of this heritage, she has like these green eyes, red hair, but she's the keeper of the cemetery alongside Bawam Samedi, and she is this like sexual woman, because sex is related to life. Sex, you can't have life without sex. It's just a fact of life. And she wears brightly colored clothes that are like purple and black and green, and she swears like a sailor, which if you've ever been to Ireland follows. And she's really known as this sort of like mother figure, which is really, really beautiful. Really, I think some of the most cross-culturally interesting things I've ever seen happen on this planet Earth. The fact that she was brought over to the Caribbean, to the Americas, and this white deity was taken on as like such a powerful spirit that she has a place within the pantheon. I think that's fascinating, just in and of itself.
I never put two and two together, to be honest, with Maman Brigitte and Brigid of the British Isles. I never thought about it. It's actually, and now I'm like, that's mental, Nikki. Like, how could you not? But you're right.
Yeah, you don't like.
It's like, how do I? It's interesting. So you're saying that as a lower, so Maman Brigitte, she's a a guardian of the cemetery.
She's guardian of cemetery with
The cemetery
Baron
on
Samedi.
Sunday.
Yeah.
And does she? Because obviously, the Bridget of Ireland is like all about fertility and healing. And I mean, you said she's about motherhood. Are there similar aspects with Maman Brigitte?
Yeah, there's still that aspect of healing and protection. So she's
Okay.
of both fire and water, which I think is really fascinating. She's like this
Oh.
mutable being, and she's
Mm.
about life and death. And she's about sex. I guess even putting sex and death as contrasts, that creation of something and that ending of something. She is this sort of like, I don't know, for me she feels like this like void like figure. The void being everything comes from and goes to.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I
When I
totally
talk
feel
about
that.
it, I get like all tingly.
Babe, you need to
Um,
be doing some work with her then. She's calling
do you
you.
reckon?
Like, serious? Yeah, 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 definitely. I think it's really interesting actually to think about Bridget going over, being taken over, and then actually when she's in this new place where she has had to travel by water,
Hmm.
she's had to get there by water. That journey that is taken, obviously, that terrible fucking journey by water. She, like, I just feel like that's a really interesting thing that maybe isn't as connected to the English version of Bridget.
Hmm.
Like that, and that. What I mean by kind of mentioning this is the evolution of what happens. Like, so when we take, I think Emma mentioned this to you actually yesterday, like when we take something from somewhere else, like then it changes and evolves because of the people and their need and what's happening
Mm.
therefore in that country. So it's like it does make sense for the mother energy to be the beginning and the end energy. Do you know what I mean? It does make sense
If I
for
brought
that.
you into this world, I'll take you
I'll
out.
take you out.
um, I
If you
want
grew
to
up in a
take this.
Caribbean household, you fucking know that.
You know that phrase. That is Maman Brigitte energy. But I want to take this moment to go on a PSA and a fucking rant because we've encountered a practitioner of our dear practice, Obia, in the past, who has sort of tried to chastise us because our Obia isn't true Obia because it's got differences. Yeah, that's kind of what fucking happens when you take a whole people across a place and traumatize them. Like the spirit of this thing evolves. It's a
Mm-hmm.
living, breathing thing. It like transmutes. And I think it's so fascinating in Vodou. If you were to go to, like, I'm sure if we were talking to any Vodou practitioner that is in mainland Africa, in continental Africa, like they're not necessarily going to have this spirit in their pantheon. Would they then go to Haitians and say, "Oh, it's not true, true Vodou because you got this white lady in there"? In the same way, in Obia, we have Anima Sola, um,
Mm-hmm.
once again another European figure that has found her way through indentured servants into our practice and is going to be honoured or respected in a way that she wouldn't be in continental Africa. I just
Mm-hmm.
think it's so fascinating, this change and how it evolves and grows when you add other people and other people's customs into the mix.
100%. And I actually think it's a really beautiful thing because as human beings, we are here to evolve. It's like
Yeah.
we literally grow. You start as a baby, you grow the fuck up. Like it's like we're here to grow and to evolve and to learn. And I feel like limiting yourself in that way by going, this is from here and it works like that and only that. And there can
Yeah.
be no evolution of that practice is actually crazy. It's like these
Mm.
practices will die. They will go away. They will fall away if they aren't able to
Mm.
evolve and grow with the people as we move through the earth, which we always have done. We are a
Yeah.
nomadic fucking species. Like we didn't stay in Africa. If we'd have stayed in Africa, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that is it. We are a nomadic species. It's only through the recency of Eurocentric hard borders. I say
Hmm.
recency, last couple of thousand years, that we've
Yeah.
put these things in place where it's like, oh, I'm from within this imaginary line that's drawn on a map, and I'm from within this imaginary line. Um, you would have had a blurring and a blending and a like gradation between peoples. Um, we've always been nomadic. You know, the Hawaiians, they were Polynesians, they were seafaring people. They've got sweet potatoes there that came from like all the way in Peru. Um, the Irish, they've got potatoes that have come from that part of the world, and the only reason curry is spicy is because of the horribleness of the Portuguese slave trade. That when you go back further, you know, silks didn't pop up from nowhere in England back in the early point of forming of this country. That would have come all the way through Asia, gone on the Silk Road, gone through the Middle East, gone through Europe to arrive at England. Like all
Mm-hmm.
of this stuff has been so enmeshed with each other. I think what blew my mind, and really shouldn't have blown my mind, is that the indigenous people who lived on the Caribbean islands, they would have been traveling back and forth to the mainland of North and South America. They
Mm-hmm.
they were trading. They have pots that
Mm-hmm.
were formed in one place that ended up in another. We are a nomadic species, and it's only
Mm.
the powers that be that don't want us to be nomadic, that put in front of us these like separations or these imaginary ways to hate one another. um
100%.
I think if we can spend more time understanding how things move around, I think we'll each be a little more secure in our humanness, which is what we want to get to. Complete side note,
Yes.
but do you know oh, where is it? Antigua. Next to Antigua, there's an island, and they celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
I'm terrible at, I don't know anywhere in the world geographically.
Right. I should
Look it
know
up.
this because I remember
So
when I was a kid, Montserrat, that was it. When I was a kid
oh,
in
Montserrat.
Montserrat, there was a volcano that erupted, and a lot of Montserratians were, you know, they became refugees as a result of that volcano. And I went
Mm-hmm.
to Antigua like years after this happened, and whenever you touched the car, there was just a thick layer of volcano dirt on the car. Really bizarre. But they actually celebrate St. Patrick's Day because the indentured servants took over St. Patrick there. So you do see this sort of like Irish, these little bits of Irish
Mm-hmm.
popping up around either through indentured servants or, unfortunately, slave masters themselves. But the actual
Mm-hmm.
culture that belongs to the people, that tends to pop up through the indentured servants.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I mean, I think this is also a really important point to make about the Irish,
Hmm.
because it used to be no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. You know, so that connection of being an unloved and a used people
Hmm.
is actually massively there, and it's unsurprising actually.
Yeah.
To be honest, like, yeah, sometimes when I meet Irish people, I do feel like some of my Jamaican family. It's so funny.
Well, yeah, they did have this experience of when they came over to when they were coming over to Britain, especially
Mm,
after the Irish potato famine, which was caused by the British monarchy, caused by British politics.
mm-hmm,
Um, these people were starved out, and they over this period of time, um, sort of up until the 1960s, not long ago, people would come over and they'd see on places that you could rent no blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
mm-hmm,
And I believe my husband's grandmother would have come over to that rhetoric. Um, so here in the UK, at least, I feel like, oh, in the mainland British Isles, you feel like
mm,
there's an understanding that this history happened. I don't know what
mm-hmm.
it's like in the Americas. I know that as soon as anyone gets taken to the Americas, that those sort of microaggressions and racism get like shaken up times
100%.
10. Not that it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah.
exist here, it's just over there, they're on basically ancient burial grounds. Of course, shit is going to be 10 times worse over there,
Mm.
given their violent history that took place on their soil. So
I
much of
feel like
that
it's
violent history. Go on.
Yeah, sorry, go on. No, you go. So much of that.
No, I was just going to say, so much of that violent history didn't happen on this soil. So maybe that's the energetic element where it doesn't get talked about or recognized as much, or maybe it's just the British stiff upper lip where we just tell ourselves that certain things don't exist.
That's a fucking great point, actually, in that difference. It's the castle grounds difference. It's like, even if you're, yeah.
All of the mixed, it's so funny, all of the mixed race kids that I went to school with growing up, so many of them were like, oh yeah, I'm half Irish. What is it about? Yeah, so much. In fact, I knew a couple who were like mixed race and like Irish dancers, and I was always like,
really?
why did I get to Irish dance? That looks so fun.
Oh, well, you married an Irish person, so you made that space for yourself in your life.
The only reason I married Chris is so when we have kids, they can I can put them in Irish dancing classes.
No, oh my God, you have to do that. You have to do that.
That's not why. That's not why I married my husband. I want to make that very clear.
She had a few reasons. That was just number one.
That was. No, I think it's such a fascinating culture because it's one of the few remaining parts of this isle where they've managed to hold on to the good they actually had before
100%.
It came in. The Romans came in, it was Romanized, and then they spread like a fucking virus and fucked over everyone else in the world.
Basically. Okay. It's back to Imbolc.
We went on a bit of an Irish rant, but it's all relevant. It's all relevant because these lowers, these deities, they ended up other parts of the world, and our people have integrated those into their practices. I think that's so fascinating to me. Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Will you do anything, do you think, to celebrate Imbolc or utilize those energies that are happening right now?
I think I might have a go at making a cross out of some plant matter, and I may hang it over my door as protection because she's a lower of protection. And I think, lighting, her colours are purple, green and black, lighting those candles. I think I'm going to do something really simple like that and just invite her energy of protection into the home. Voodoo style. I think that's what I'm going to do. Are you going to do anything?
I just muted myself. I think I'm going to steal your ideas. It's much better than what I was thinking about.
What were you going to do? Like a whole build a fire?
Gonna build a fire. I was going to take off all my clothes, dance around. I mean, it's full moon, babes. What else to do? May still do that. I mean, it's pretty cold.
It's pretty cold. I wanted to take this moment to talk about what we've got coming up and what's percolating at the moment. So we are in the midst of creating a course, and this course is going to be talking all about the places you need to clear out before you get to this place of manifesting what you want in your life. Because I know so many of us are trying to bring in these new energies and welcome in these new energies, but oftentimes there are things that we're not clearing out of the way first, and then we're wondering why this manifestation works, and we just like, oh, it just doesn't work, it's just not a thing. Sometimes we can be standing in our own way, and whether we realize it or not, whether we want to recognize it in that moment or not, and we want to create a space where you can self-inquire and get to the bottom of that, to block bust those obstacles out of your way, so you can actually move forward into getting what you want out of your life. How does that sound?
I mean, to me, it sounds fucking phenomenal because this is a place that I feel like we miss. We can go, okay, I'm going to manifest, or I'm going to do the thing, or even like, I'm going to get better at therapy. But there's a place of different work that you have to do. And I say that about therapy because basically when I've repeatedly been referred for CBT and then be told by the therapist that CBT will never work for me because I'm highly functioning or whatever the fuck. What I didn't realize is there's another therapy that they offer called DBT that they recommend to slot in before you do CBT. So this is kind of like that in my brain. Like sometimes we can really jump at things. We go, I want that thing, so I'm gonna just jump at that thing. But actually, you're not recognizing where you are really. And we're not saying you're not at a place where you could just manifest your fucking best life at all. But we're saying that if you are, or if at some point you feel like that, this would be the course for you. This is where we're going to start to clear out those cobwebs so you can start to feel how you really feel, the truth of your being. Like,
even if you feel like you're manifesting at 85%, like, let's be real, you're on this spiritual path because you're probably overly ambitious and you're connected to the universe and you're always going to want more because you recognize you're an expansive being. You recognize you are limitless, but you feel the limitations. And that is frustrating to so many of us in the spiritual community. Like, too many of us like that. So this, even if you've gotten so far, this will help to just act as a blockbuster, and you'll be able to use these techniques at any point in your journey again and again and again to push through and move on to the next point in your life. And it'll be helping you to trust your intuition just that little bit better, working with your intuition just that little more effectively. So we're really excited to bring that out. And we're looking at springtime to send that in your direction.
So exciting. So we're going to be working hard, guys. Keep listening, keep up to date with what we're doing. Get in touch. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about Imbolc, my love?
No, nothing more. Just realize that this is the last opportunity of the spiritual year to blow out some cobwebs. Don't be too hard on yourself. And, asking for some of that sweet, sweet protection.
Oh, yes, please. Bring it on. All right.
You've been listening to the Afro Animist podcast with me, Jay Percy.
And me, Nicola Roth. And we will catch you next week, guys.
Take care. Bye. Thank you, beautiful being of the multiverse, for joining us on the Afro Animist podcast.
If you want to get stuck into the conversation or have a question about anything we speak about here, join our mailing list and find us on our socials.
On TikTok and Instagram, find us at the Afro Animist podcast.
On Twitter, you can find us at Afro Animist. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, you can also find this talk on YouTube. Just search for us and we will pop up as if by magic.
If you're loving what we're talking about here, share, like, and subscribe. And remember to leave us a thumbs up or 5-star rating on your favourite platform.